Hey, what's up, guys? Thanks for tuning in. Yes, I do remember that this channel exists, and we're going to kick things off by looking back in 2019, and I'm going to give you guys my picks for the top 10 PlayStation VR games of the year. Okay, so starting off at number 10 is Everybody's Golf VR. Now, this one barely made it onto the list, mainly due to its limited course variation, but as a huge Tiger Woods game fan, it gave me everything that I wanted in a golfing sim, offering the deepest immersion possible. You'll no doubt be chucking your PS Move Virtual Club into the water because for some reason, the frustration of perfecting your shot is what makes golfing so fun, both in real life and in VR. At number 9, Virtual Reality. Now, I was actually surprised how quickly this game got just a tad dark and even a little existential. With a mix of Matrix and Inception vibes, you find yourself basically a human slave at the whims of AI as a paid companion in the VR world while being graded on your performance. But you'll quickly want to break out from your virtual prison, which can prove to be a bit tricky because since you can enter one virtual world while already in another, you're always a couple layers deeper than you think. I thought the execution of this game was incredible, and the dry humor juxtaposed against this frantic need to escape this hell really plays with the mind. This is one of the cheaper games in the lineup, and definitely a good value. At number 8, Ace Combat 7. We waited patiently for this one as one of the big releases of 2019, only to get a small serving of VR missions. So while I struggled with putting Ace Combat 7 on the list, I will say that the missions that they did give us were pretty damn incredible. Outside of Starblood Arena though, dogfighting games are sorely lacking on PSVR, and probably the genre that I most wanted after purchasing a headset myself a couple years back, so Ace Combat 7 does definitely scratch that itch, albeit for a short amount of time. At number 7, Sorento. When I said virtual reality gave off Matrix vibes, that was more in a philosophical sense, but Sorento on the other hand brings some dizzying bullet time craziness, and you'll feel like an upgraded version of Neo. You've got a gun in one hand and a blade in the other, and once you've nailed down the controls, which do take a bit of time to master, you'll experience probably the most satisfying ninja simulation possible. Having been ported over from the PC version, it was to be expected that Sorento would lose a few bells and whistles that made it such a popular title in the first place, but it's still a must-add for your VR collection. At number 6, Audica. Now, the Beat Saber comparisons are obvious and inevitable, but you really have to live with Audica for a while to see just how it carves out a place for itself above the crowded field of subpar would-be Beat Saber killers. Now, I don't want to get into a big Audica versus Beat Saber debate here, but I will say that I enjoy the song lineup of Audica being much more diverse even despite a large EDM presence of its own, which is a lesson that I had hoped that Beat Saber would have learned by now, and honestly I don't think they ever will. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of Ariana Grande or Post Malone, but they are very much welcome when all the songs begin to sound exactly the same after a while. In the higher difficulties, Audica also feels a bit more rewarding as there is just so much going on, and where Beat Saber is more of a physical workout, Audica is more mental with all the multitasking. At number 5, LA Noire, The VR Files. Now, if anything, it's good to know that Rockstar is paying attention to the VR space and reportedly are just getting started with the platform, which can make us only dream of what they might do in the future. But for now, the VR remake of the original LA Noire is a damn good start. This is a beautiful looking port, bringing 7 missions over from the 2011 release, and it definitely puts you in the 1940s vibe as a detective. The controls are probably one of the few low points, but all things considered, it's one of the highlights of 2019. At number 4, Ghost Giant. Now, Ghost Giant is one of those games that showcases a form of storytelling that only VR can do while tackling real-world issues like depression and feelings of isolation. And it really hones in on these themes in a way that I honestly didn't expect, especially just going off of the visual style. But the great thing about this little 3-hour puzzler is that you intervene in the lives of the inhabitants as the Ghost Giant by manipulating the environment without directly controlling the characters themselves, and I think that this helps the game leave a more lasting impression on you long after you finish playing. At number 3, Troffer Saves the Universe. If you felt like Astrobot Rescue Mission didn't have enough crude humor, then this game is the one you need. Honestly, Troffer has a bit of the colorfulness and polish of Astrobot, along with some of its platforming elements that have helped it remain probably the best VR gaming experience to this day. When you sprinkle in that Rick and Morty style comedy from Justin Roiland, you get a game that is incredibly well-rounded in the entertainment department. If you were a little let down by the gameplay deficiency of a virtual reality, then Troffer Saves the Universe should win you over. At number 2, No Man's Sky. Now, having put in a couple hundred hours worth of gameplay prior to the VR release, I gotta say I am in awe of what Hello Games has done with No Man's Sky. During their redemption tour, I remember the studio polling fans and asking them what they would like to see implemented into this game in the future, and I answered with VR support, of course, but I never thought in a million years that they could actually pull it off. But now, look where we are. It's hard to imagine that with a game this big, this expansive, and this detailed, that existed for so long before getting a VR mode, that you can do 100% of what you could do before now in VR, and they're still adding to it. This is my number 2 for the year, and maybe even an all-time top 5 PSVR title. But at number 1, no one can take away from Blood and Truth. Far too often we let our anticipation for a game's release get the better of us, only to be a little disappointed when it arrives. Shenmue. But Blood and Truth was every bit worth the wait. This falls in line to me with Resident Evil and Astrobot as the third true milestone in the VR space. We don't have many of those markers. Yes, Beat Saber is a great ambassador to the masses for getting into having fun in VR, but in terms of a true AAA title that makes you sit up and really take the format seriously, they are very few and far between, and Blood and Truth was an important step forward to keep the VR momentum going. So if you could only get one title from this list, Blood and Truth has to be it. From the action to the story, reloading guns, interacting with your environment, it was just a wild ride. And those were my top 10 PSVR games of 2019. I want to know what you would recommend in the comments below. And if you're new to the PSVR community and want to see what you've missed, take a look at my best of 2018 list at the top right. I'll see you guys again soon.